MOSAIC is here, and the FAA gave experimental aircraft owners the biggest gift that isn't really being talked about. Coming up. MOSAIC has been in the works for years, and at Oshkosh this year, the FAA administrator announced that MOSAIC is completed and signed and will come into effect on October 25th of this year. There's all kinds of new stuff in MOSAIC that affects ELSA, expands what the parameters are for qualifying as LSA, for sport pilots, all that stuff. That's been done to death. Everyone's talked about it. Everybody knows what that is. If you haven't heard about that, there are tons of videos out there that are talking about that, or you can go read the 800-page document yourself. The one thing that really got me excited kind of slipped under the radar, and it's a huge gift for experimental aircraft owners, especially ones who did not build their own airplane like me. As a background, when you are a builder of an experimental aircraft, as long as you've built 51% of that aircraft, so if it was a kit, it's called 51% kit, you have to be able to prove that you did at least 51% of the work building that airplane. And when you've done that, you can apply for a repairman certificate on that airplane. Now, anybody can work on an experimental aircraft. In fact, I'm doing work on mine today. I do not have an A&P to do that, but I don't have to. I could pull any Joe off the street and say, hey, you want to work on my airplane? And that's perfectly legal. I mean, it's stupid, but it's legal. Hopefully, if you are working on your own experimental aircraft, you have some idea what you're doing. If not, you should get some training. Now, you take that documentation saying that you've done 51% of the work, and you go to the FAA, and you are issued a repairman certificate for that specific airplane. It's kind of like an A&P, but just for one airplane. That means, yes, you can work on the plane, but more importantly, you can do the annual condition inspection on the airplane. If you do not have a repairman certificate for that airplane, or you do not have an A&P, then you have to go to an A&P who does the annual inspection on the airplane. Unlike a certified airplane, you do not have to go to an IA. For a certified airplane like a Cessna 172, the A&P has to have an IA, or inspection authorization, in order to do the annual inspection on that Cessna. For experimental, just a regular A&P will do, as long as you have an A&P certificate or the repairman certificate for that airplane. You see that little spot right there? That's where the audio cut out in the video, so I'm going to have to tell you what I said in here because it didn't record. So there are two types of light sport repairman certificates. So there's LSRM, which is the light sport repairman. It is a 2-week course, which is pretty good considering that an A&P certificate takes almost 2 years of study. And then there's the LSRI, which allows you to inspect light sport aircraft to sign it off on the annual inspection. And you can do that course in only 2 days. 2 8-hour days, you can get an LSRI certificate. Now, the gift that MOSAIC has given us is now that if you have an LSRM or an LSRI, you can do condition inspections on experimental aircraft. So if you have an LSRM, you could do an inspection on any experimental aircraft. Of course, you can do maintenance on it as well, but you don't need an LSRM to do that on an experimental or EAP. But LSRM means you can sign off the condition inspection on an experimental airplane. LSRI, which is the inspection certificate, allows you to then go to your local FSDO and apply for a repairman certificate for an airplane that you own. So now if you have an airplane like this that you have purchased and you do not have a repairman certificate for it, you can go take an LSRI course, which is a 2-day course. Once you've completed that course and you have the certificate, go to your FSDO with proof of ownership of your airplane, and they will issue you a repairman certificate for your experimental airplane. Now you can sign off on the condition inspection on your airplane, which is perfect for me because the way I've been doing it is I've been taking my airplane to an A&P. I do the inspection, he signs it off. I mean, he looks at the work that I've done and he says, yep, looks good, signs it off. So I'm already doing the inspection on the airplane, but now I can sign it off myself. So I have signed up for an LSRI course. There are not many. There's only 2 providers that actually do the LSRI course, and they are going to fill up fast once this news gets out. But if you have an experimental airplane and you do not have a repairman certificate for that airplane, you should go ahead and get that LSRI certificate so you can get the repairman certificate for your experimental airplane. Yeah, and you too can do CIs on your experimental airplane. Any questions, comments, suggestions, leave in the comment section below. If you like this kind of video, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching.